Welcome back to my channel, everybody. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to create P.F. Chang's Mongolian beef. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that this channel is dedicated to teaching you how to create your favorite signature dishes from the most popular restaurants. I try to do it in a very user-friendly way. We have a little bit of fun when we do it. We cook, we laugh, and so welcome back. And if you're joining us for the first time, then welcome. P.F. Chang's is a popular upscale China bistro that was co-founded by Paul Fleming. Paul Fleming was made famous by Fleming's Steakhouse, and in fact my episode coming up is the Fleming's signature potatoes, so make sure you check that out. One thing that I definitely want to point out about this dish is that while it's easy in terms of the ingredients, in fact there's only like 7 main ingredients in this dish, it is all about technique. So just follow along. We're going to go through this step by step. I'm even going to show you how to slice the flank steak so that you know how to get the best consistency, the best texture, and the right size for the dish. I will have, as usual, all of the ingredients with the portion sizes listed in the description below, so you can follow along that way. But as far as technique, let's just go through this, you and I together. If you have any questions, then please feel free after you've watched the video to write your questions in the comment line, and I'll be sure to address those questions for you and answer them best I can. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how to prepare the beef first, and we're going to go through the cutting technique of that, and then we'll go into the dish itself. Before I start any cooking process, I like to have everything that I need in the portions that I need right at the ready. It's what's called mise en place, which means everything in its place. And for just about generally any cooking, it does make the experience faster, more enjoyable, and easier, but it is never so true than with Asian cooking. The meat is always in bite-sized pieces, as is the vegetable, because of course it's intended to be eaten with chopsticks. So the meat cooks very quickly, the vegetables cook very quickly, and you really need to be able to just reach and grab for the ingredients that you need so that nothing is left burning or overcooking. But first things first, I'm going to show you how to prep out the flank steak. So let's go ahead and get started with P.F. Chang's Mongolian beef. What I have here is a 2-pound piece of flank steak. Flank steak is a very popular and economical cut of meat. You can get it in any grocery store, and it is really important to use flank steak for this Mongolian beef because it is the traditional steak that's used in just about any Mongolian beef recipe that you'll find, and certainly it's what P.F. Chang's uses in their recipe. And a little bit of a tip for you is that I stuck this in the freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes before I slice it. It's not frozen by any stretch. It's not nearly frozen through, but it just makes it a little bit easier to slice. And you can see that this is a very wide piece of flank steak. So I'm going, oh jeez. Can you believe it? I actually put my filming sign on my front door and they rang the doorbell anyways. Anyways, let's move past. So to first prepare this, we're going to cut with the grain because we want the pieces to be smaller. I'm going to cut this into 3s. I've got 3 pieces. Go ahead and trim off any of the real obvious pieces of fat. You want to keep some of the fat and marbling, but any big hunks you can go ahead and get rid of. In order to make flank steak tender once it's cooked, you want to cut it against the grain. It makes for a more tender piece of steak because the grain is actually the marbling, the fat that's in the steak, and the marbling does give it that beautiful juicy flavor, but you do have to cut it against the grain so that it's not tough and chewy when you bite into it. About the size of the piece there that I have, I would say that that's about a 1 inch by ½ an inch piece. The piece sizes will vary because, of course, this strip was a little bit thicker than this strip. Even though I cut it into 3 equal parts, it's just a little bit thicker. This had a thinner edge to it, but that's the general size that you're looking for. This one's a little bit bigger. It's about a ½ an inch by 2 inches. That's perfect. Keep your fingers tucked in when you're slicing. Cooking is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to end up in a trip to the emergency room. You do want to try to keep the meat slices consistent in size so that the dish and the meat cooks consistently. You don't want to have some pieces that are overdone and some that aren't done enough. Okay, the next step in this dish is the preparation of the sauce. The meat is not cooked in the sauce, it's tossed in the sauce at the very end. And so we need to go ahead and get this working so we can let it reduce, because the end product ends up being a little bit like a glaze, and I'll go through that with you. So we're going to start with 1 tablespoon of a neutral oil, canola oil, otherwise known as Wesson, equal parts ginger and garlic, 1 tablespoon of each, a half of a cup of soy sauce, a half of a cup of water, and a half of a cup of brown sugar. And now we're just going to let this sit on a medium heat and reduce. Give it a frequent stir so that the bottom doesn't burn, that the sugars don't burn. Okay, this sauce is where I want it. Let me show you the consistency on it. It's a lot thicker from where we started off. You can see that it's reduced by about half. You can see from the outline of the pan where the original, right, see where I'm pointing here? That's where it started, and this is where it's down to. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off the heat, and we're going to set this aside. We're going to come back to it, but we're done with the reduction of this sauce for right now. It looks perfect. Okay, so let me show you really quickly what we need to do to get this meat ready to put in the pan so that we can sear it. We're going to coat it in cornstarch. And the easiest way to do that is just to put all of the meat that we've already sliced into a plastic bag. And then we're going to shake it around. And that gives it the most even coating, I find. So this is the 2 pounds of flank steak that we prepared earlier. This is about 1/4 of a cup plus a bit of cornstarch. Just dump that right in there. I'm going to do 2 pinches of kosher salt. Don't go crazy with the salt, because keep in mind this is going to be tossed in a glaze, which the base is soy sauce. There's a lot of salt in soy sauce, obviously. So go a little bit easy on the salt. You can always add more at the end, like I always say. You can add more at the end, but you can't take it away once it's in there. So 2 pinches on that. Let's do about 7 or 8 grinds of the black pepper. Whatever that was. Was that 7 or 8? I don't know. You'll know when it's enough. And then you just zip it up and you shake it around. And that way you know that all of the pieces are evenly coated. I think it's a more efficient and effective way than putting it in a bowl and trying to stir it. All right, let's shift gears, and I'm going to show you how to go ahead and sear the beef. We want this pan to be hot, hot, hot. I've got a really, really great non-stick pan here, and I'm going to go ahead and use that. And we're going to let this get really, really hot, because what we're trying to do is sear the meat. And in order for the meat to sear properly, the pan needs to be as hot as it can be. So I've got this all the way up to the highest heat that it can get to. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the oil. This is 1 tablespoon of canola oil and another tablespoon mixed into it of chili oil, because I'm putting a little bit of heat on this dish. Now, if you do not like heat, as far as spicy is concerned, then just use 2 tablespoons of regular canola oil. Leave out the chili oil. If you do like heat, then you can get chili oil pretty much at any grocery store. It's not hard to find. We're going to let that get really hot before we add the flank steak. But let me show you this. I've transferred the meat into a bowl. Can you see how beautiful that is? So because I tossed it all in a bag, you can see that pretty much every piece is evenly coated with the cornstarch and the salt and the pepper. So it's really the best way to do that. And once I add the meat, I'm going to show you that we are not going to overcrowd the meat. We're not going to put all 2 pounds into the pan at once. I happen to be using a very big pan, so how much meat you put into your pan will depend on the size of the pan that you're using, but you do not want to overcrowd. All of the meat is evenly distributed in the bottom of the pan, and now I'm going to just leave it alone and let it sear. What you're going to want to do is get an extra plate and set it off to the side, because once this batch is completely cooked through, we're going to use a slotted spoon and take that out and set it off to the side, and then we'll add the rest of our steak. Okay, I feel that this batch is done. It's got a nice sear, and I'm going to remove it from the pan and add another batch of the flank steak. Using a slotted spoon, try to drain off the excess oil, put it on your side plate, This pan to me appears well seasoned from the first batch, so I'm not going to add any more canola or chili oil, but if you feel as though your pan needs a little bit, add another tablespoon or two of the canola oil. And now I'm incorporating the second batch of flank steak, just like I did the first time. It looks to me like all total, this is going to be about 3 batches. Okay, you've seen this before. We're gonna do the same thing, batch 3. Now you might be working with a smaller flank steak. As I mentioned before, mine was about 2 pounds, probably slightly larger than 2 pounds. So you might not have as many batches if you're working with like 1.5 pounds, let's say. But nonetheless, each batch you want to treat in the exact same way. The point is to do it in small batches so that you don't overcrowd the pan. You're looking for a sear. You don't want the meat to steam, as I covered before. All right, let's go ahead and let this do its thing. Okay, now that my batch 3, which is my final batch, has a nice sear on both sides, I'm going to add back in the steak because we're going to finish this with the sauce and the green onions. So my reserved steak I'm going to add back in. Okay, I turned my pan down. Now we're going to add this amazing soy glaze. It goes right into the pan. I'm going to use a rubber spatula because I want to get all of that brown sugar soy glaze out of the bottom of the pan. That's where all the magic happens. All right, we're going to give this a nice stir to make sure that all of the pieces are coated in this amazing glaze. And I'm going to let this just sit and cook for probably about another minute and a half. And then we're going to toss in the green onion, the scallion, and it's ready to serve. Pretty easy, huh? See, we were worried about it. Nah, I wasn't worried about it. Were you worried about it? I wasn't worried about it. Okay, my peeps, the only thing left to do is to toss in the scallion or green onion. I did this in a very large dice, and I only used the green part. I didn't use the white part. And this is 2 cups. All right, there you have it. Let's plate this up. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed P.F. Chang's Mongolian beef episode. Check out my benihana ginger dressing, and you can serve a salad, some steamed jasmine rice, and Mongolian beef for dinner tonight. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see other videos on restaurant recipes from the most popular restaurants that I show you how to create at home, then please consider subscribing. You can also follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram, and you'll see my upcoming episodes as well. Like I said earlier, I'll be back here in a couple of days showing you how to create Fleming's signature potatoes. But until then, everybody, cheers, have an awesome day. Love y'all, and we'll see you again soon.